Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Paranormal Karen, funny too. Paranormal Karen, she's so spooky. Oh, and did I mention she's funny too? Yeah, cha-cha-cha.
Hey everybody, welcome to Paranormal Karen. Super excited. It's a first time. I think I've had this show on. I don't know if it's in seasons anymore. I know I'm up to episode like 145. And I have never had a channeler on. The lady I have coming on today, Amaya. See, I got it right, didn't I?
Yes, you did.
From the Amaya Center. She was recommended to me by one of my favorite. She's like, you're going to love this lady. She's a healer. She's a shaman and she's a channeler. You can look her up. We'll have all her things in the show notes, the Amaya Center. And also she has a new podcast out called the Wise Woman Podcast or Wise Woman Podcast.
Wise Woman Podcast.
If that's not the best title for a podcast, I don't know what is. Thank you for coming on the show. How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, thank you very much. Considering everything that we're going through in this massive transformation.
I know.
This is the rocket getting ready to take off, and the rocket feels a little hot right now.
That is true.
It's a little hot.
You know, that's actually a great topic to even start with before channeling, because you do healings. I'd imagine in your channeling, is it channeling like a reading or is it more information? What would you call that?
It could be in different ways. Generally, when people come to me individually, it's like a reading, but it's not an intuitive reading. And I rudely use the word psychic. That makes my hair stand on end for some reason, so I don't use it. I guess because of the connotations of where, and it's nothing wrong with that word, I just don't particularly use it. The intuitive reading is more so for life issues, which we have a right to ask about. Mm-hmm. There's nothing wrong with that. The work that I do, because I work with a group known as Isaiah in the group, I've been working with them. I've had the privilege of their working with me for the last 40 years of my life. I started when I was 25, and I'm now 65. Go figure. Who knew? And so the reading is certainly for your heart, soul, and life. And it's different for everyone. I wish I was a little fly on the wall for each session.
Wow. It's
very different. But what it does is, what they do is they have a wonderful way of starting at the center of your life and working out. Like almost like a spiral effect. Many questions get answered. I have stood and sat in front of large and small groups of participants since I began, and that I call those group channelings, and there's a lesson presented, and then questions do get answered. In the majority of cases, in either type of situation, it can be very emotional and very life-changing for the individuals. I do channeling sometimes just when I don't do it. I have boundaries here, so I just don't spontaneously channel when I'm around people, unless there's something happening and spirits tapping me on the shoulder about it, or the person is very receptive to what I'm hearing. And I always ask for permission before I say anything. We have to ask for permission.
And before we even get into how you started, because I always tell people I started in the paranormal field, so I view everything from a cautionary, like, don't jump in and start channeling everybody. How did you either figure out you were a channeler, or what is your story, how you got to this place?
Well, I agree with you. One of my things right now that I'm speaking about to whoever will listen, and God knows if anybody's really listening out there when I speak sometimes, is the fact that we need the elders in place. There's so many young people out there calling themselves channels and healers, which is fine because you get on the healing path, you're going to heal. Higher on the path, thinner it gets. Yet, so many of them don't have teachers. I had many teachers. Now, I know life is our teacher. I know people. We teach each other. The word tormentor means to teach. The word mentor means to teach. So, but I'm talking about specific teaching, not so much to open up to channeling, that can happen, but to
the system,
to open to the healing presented so that you become open for spiritual movement or direction or flow through you.
Now,
it's really important. I was taught by my first teacher that we, those of us in that group, 25 women, really needed to heal ourselves because we were tending to other people's lives.
mm-hmm.
And it was very important.
So that's like the shadow work.
That's what they call it. Yes, the shadow work. I feel like, shadows are good.
Mm-hmm.
Any artist will tell you shadowing is necessary to bring the depth and the width out of a painting. Shadows, when it gets to be difficult, is when it turns into projection, I think.
I agree.
And detrimental patterning. I think that's when we were into the problematic end of things. So I would say they used to call it the inner child work. Now they call it the shadow work. I just believe it's our destiny to no longer suffer in the hardening of the bitterness and the harm and the hurt and the anger that is not resolved. And I believe it's out of our hands at this point. This collective thing that's happening has also been very individual for everyone. I
love that. And first of all, I love that the tormentor and the mentor are your teacher. That is really,
right.
That speaks to me. I always think the shadow work or whatever, I think it's the part that society told us to be ashamed of. And when we break away from society and go, yeah, I'm just a person. And sometimes I snap or sometimes I this and that. When we can accept that without the shame, I really feel like that's a very short synapse of how I think it should go. But
yes, right.
So, and obviously on my podcast, I fly by the seat of my pants. So talking about what's going on now, which I know we kind of switched over for a sort of an easy way to say it, we're switching over into this age of Aquarius, but what do you think is happening to mankind right now?
Well, if I could back up and just for a minute talk about how I came in, mm-hmm. or how I was kind of thrown in to all this. I am a natural born skeptic. I'm always, not so much anymore because I've eldered, but I used to say for years, prove it to me. And the partners I'd be with, they would get terrified because I would get proven to like within 5 minutes. And sometimes it was pretty intense. So I came in, I was born this way. I saw spirits since I was very little. I was the young boy in The Sixth Sense, the movie. Mm-hmm. I used to tell my mother to get the people out of my room. There was one earthbound woman who would terrify me. I called her the witch in the window. I know now that she was either an incubus or a poor tortured soul trying to get my attention or perhaps myself in a past life. So I knew things before. My mother said I used to come to her in the mornings and tell her things and they would come true. I don't remember that part. At 7 years old, it began to fade for me to some degree because I chose to be born into a household with alcoholism and problems and a lot of dysfunctional or what we called suffering things. And I see now because when I walk through life now, there's many things I don't know and there's many things I can relate to because of my life.
Mm-hmm. I feel like that's a healer's. You have to go through the other side of it to become a healer on the other side. And I was going to ask you, did your parents deny it was going on? Oh, you're not seeing that? Or were they supportive? Or what was their view on it?
My mother would pick up the window shade and say, see, there's no one there. I didn't, because, but that's that generation, and from what I understand, it's funny, once I got into this field, both sides of the family took credit. They said, it's because of my aunt, blah, blah, it's your cousin so-and-so. And the fact is, one of my second cousins on my father's side, I actually have the soul portrait here. I did not know she was my second cousin. I actually took some art classes with her. She died from liver cancer many years ago. Actually, I saw her in a fair, and she asked me to work on her, and I couldn't. I was too busy. And years later, I was in the car with my great aunt, and she said, I'm not surprised you have these gifts, because on my side was my second cousin's daughter, blah, 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 and I'm thinking to myself, she's not talking about Sandra Dolan. I mean, every hair on my body stood on end, and I said, are you speaking about Sandra Dolan? She said, exactly, that's what I'm talking about. Mm-hmm. So apparently it runs in my family, particularly on my dad's side. I thought it was more on my mom's side. So I put this all away, except it would come out in my dreams. I dreamt about John Lennon's death the night before. I dreamt for years about the Challenger going down, and it took years for it to finally, unfortunately, happen. I dreamt about many things. I would go by people and pick up their feelings, and I thought everyone worked this way. I had no relating point.
Wow.
Until I met my first teacher, Evan Isidore, when I was 24 years old.
And how did you meet this teacher? Did they show up? Did you take a class? Was it interesting?
I had gone for a reading. I had a friend who moved in with my mother due to circumstances, and she's 20-some years she's in her 70s now, and I'm in my 60s. So she's about 15 years my senior, 12, 15 years my senior. And she put on the table a card for an intuitive reader. And I went and saw this reader who told me about my life and where I was going, which to me was just like talking off the wall at the time. And I came home. Barbara was coming out of the kitchen, and I was standing in my mother's kitchen. I said, "Oh, I see that you went to this reader." And she stopped, turned around, and we began to talk. And that set off for both of us a process that has lasted till today. And she knew Evelyn Isidore, and I went to one of her classes, and we were off and running. You know, there's phenomenal stories. I have stories up my arm for everything that has happened in my life. Like this woman, her first time she channeled, I was terrified. I actually said to my friend, "You tell me that's not that woman's subconscious." And Barbara, who's a full-blooded, I think it's Lakota, looked at me and laughed and said, "You just hold on to that. We'll see where it goes." Well, here's where it went, really, to this place. Wow. So I came into this field skeptical, but there was a continuous, it's like spirit chased me down. I started with the tarot cards, and in the tarot cards, all of a sudden I would say something and not know where it came from, or my voice would shift. So it's been a process for me. And thankfully it's been a process because it makes it valid, it makes it real. I think I would have gone insane if I just kind of opened one day and started doing this because it's so deep and so wide for me.
Oh, and it's a little scary. You know, it's funny. I teach a tarot class, and I always say you're working two ways with tarot. You're working on the cards and off. And off is sort of more of an intuitive thing. But I'm a tarot reader, so I'm a tarot fan. I love it. So now there's because I have, this term channeling, because someone will always say to me, "Well, you're channeling," but I feel like I'm not. I feel like I might be speaking with someone's guides or having more of a telepathic communication, but channeling, is that information or someone in the same spirit space, body space? How would you define that?
Well, for me, there's all forms of channeling. You know, when people are inspired to write music, it comes from their higher self or something they planned before they were born here, or maybe from spirit, art. I'm a trained therapist in addition to everything else. So, you know, I'm inspired many times when I'm speaking to someone. I find something they say, and that's kind of the linchpin that we go from. I have this wonderful way of finding that place of suffering and helping them transform it to the place of freedom. So it's all forms of channeling. Now, the channeling you're speaking about that I do, and I believe you channel, you know, you may be listening and it's not like right on top of you. They're not right on top of you, or you haven't stepped out of your way fully or partially, whatever. But that is channeling. The type of channeling I do varies. There are times when it comes through and I'm very aware of what's being said, or they're tapping me wanting something to be said or expressed. Sometimes my channeling is pictures. I see things unexpectedly. I did a session with a woman 2 sessions ago. I've known her for years. We were working on something, and all of a sudden it was beautiful. This lotus flower had appeared in my head, and I heard, you know, when someone flicks a crystal glass that's really pristine, I heard this ding, and this diamond turned and a light kind of shined off of it. And I told her about it, and it turned out that she is taking intuitive art classes, and she's been drawing diamonds. You know, that's a form of connectedness. Now, what we're speaking about is certainly those beings who run together or are together or gathering together to help us and the planet with the maturing and the gathering of wisdom. That is the type of channeling that I'm well known for. That ability to let spirit speak through me.
And that was what you called Isaiah?
Isaiah, years ago, I had work published, and the publisher came to me. It's Metaphysical Magazine at the time. I don't believe it's still in publication. And they asked me for the name for who I channel. I said, I don't know the name. And they said to me, sometimes I'm not real quick on the upsweep. They said to me, well, go ask. So I went and asked. I was like, I don't have a name. I got a little befuddled. And I went and asked, and they said, we will take the name Isaiah and the group because we're more than one. And Isaiah is a frequency of the coming of the Lord, the coming of the God self. We are not Isaiah of the Bible, but we come from a similar frequency. And they showed me, explained to me, they're large vortex. Many have incarnated here. Many have not. Some are from the galaxies. And many are very close to the God source.
So my brain wants to categorize, and maybe it can't be done, but would you call them guides or ETs or angels or maybe a mix of all of that?
I just think they're a vortex of energy with many lights upon inside of it, carrying heart information, HERT, mind information, love. I heard the word prophecy, so I'll use the word prophecy. I don't know why I'm using that word. See, that's part of what happens for me. Mm-hmm. Prophecy, prophetic, which means the looking towards the future, and healing.
Yeah, it's funny that you didn't like the word psychic because I was like, well, she's already picked up on like 7 psychic things. So, so whatever, maybe that's not your word, but I love what you're doing. So you took a class, you meditated. How did you?
I have always listened and seen spirit, even though I put it away. When I was 15 years old, I picked up my first book of reincarnation. I was an avid reader for years. I still am. When I have time. I love reading. It's like watching a movie in my head. I just love reading. And it saved my life. Books and music saved my life because of the severity of suffering and my family of origin. And I picked up a book in the library by, I think it was Ruth Montgomery, writing about Arthur Ford. This is how long ago it was. These were the mediums back then, and these were the books. And once I had those books in my hands, because sometime around that age, there was a woman who would put nationally in the newspaper her reading, her predictions every day for each birth sign. I forget her name now. And I thought to myself, that's what I want to do. Unknowing to me that this is what was going to start unfolding. I just knew that is where I wanted to go. My cousin has told me, I'm the eldest of all my family and of the children, has told me that I always was very interested. She remembers me speaking at that age about all of these things. Not to the degree and detail I know now, but the interest in it.
Mm-hmm. Me, so, I have the same. I know exactly what you're talking about. Always, yeah.
Yeah, always an interest in the what we call the phenomena of living. I forgot what the question was.
That's okay. That's. I think I do that to people because I'm a little. I'm not ADHD. I don't take that label, but I can be a little all over the place.
Yeah.
But we were talking about how you went from sort of thinking about it to doing it. So you read about it, and then it kind of.
So I read about this, and then I met Barbara, and Barbara said, "I'm going to this class with this woman named Evelyn Isidore. Would you like to go?" And we went, and it was a class about what color ray we came in on. And she channeled.
Wow.
Unknown to me. And she said, I came on brown. And I thought to myself, I don't want brown. I want purple or blue or green. And she said, and I think I may have voiced that. And they expressed, well, you came in on brown because your gifts are so powerful that if you're not grounded enough, you'll literally go insane. But it will transmutate from red to green, then to pink. And when you come to pink, then your work will truly start on the planet.
Wow. Do you do that type of reading for people that come to you, that type of color or reading now?
No, but it's a great idea, and I haven't thought about it in years.
It
Great
is.
idea.
Well, I'm as much as I'm probably over the top, and I guess I'm a skeptic, but I kind of say I'm pretty much a believer. Like you tell me, and then I'll find the proof, which I guess is a skeptic because I've had too many. Skeptic is a very strange word lately, and as a matter of fact, I'm going to take a break, and we will be right back. I want to talk about the word skeptic and then keep going. So hang on. Hey everybody, just a quick update. I will not be at Tin Pan Alley in Cape Cod, at least not in the beginning of June. So keep your fingers crossed that I can change that announcement, or maybe even next year you'll see me there. But right now, that date has been postponed. I am restarting my psychic stand-up show at Flappers the 4th Thursday of every month, which is very exciting. And also, if you're in the LA area, you can see me headlining there July 24th. I'll keep you updated on that. Other than that, you can go to my website, karenrontowski.com or paranormalkaren.com and book a reading or check out my videos. And hey, don't be afraid to drop me an email. I love to hear from you guys. Maybe suggest a guest, maybe tell me your favorite guest, maybe tell me to shut up. Either way, karenrontowski.com. Let's get back to the podcast. Okay, so I kind of find, because I do a lot of radio shows and stuff, about skeptic has turned into defensive non-believer a lot of times. Like I find if someone says you're going on a show with a skeptic, I went on one and the first lady, I did a reading for the first lady. I said, so let's say you're a teacher. And she says, I'm a teacher. Then the next guy, I said, this year's all about moving and love for you. And he says, I've moved 3 times and I just broke up with my girlfriend. And the skeptic says, no, she wasn't very good. Everyone is a teacher. Which I couldn't even argue against because I was like, that has to be the dumbest argument I've ever heard. So I always, the word skeptic, I'm glad you're giving it a better sort of description.
Right. To me, skeptic is like, for me, and I love skeptics, because once they get it, they get it.
Which is very different than
someone. And there's no going back after that point.
Yes. Yes.
Really. And why not have a little bit of skepticism so you can see what's working for you and what's not?
Mm-hmm.
Really, and what's valid for you. I mean, there may be validity for some readers out there that I don't ring true with.
I agree with that. It's the gut of what feels right for you.
Right, and it just may be frequency. It may be that it's not at a certain level for me, or it's really not correct. We have to be very careful. We're serving people here. We're serving the earth. Mm-hmm. We're serving life, and really have to come from a very deep, prayerful place when we do this work. There are many times when, if I don't feel well, like if I have a cold or I'm just not feeling well, I'm 65, I had a few surgeries, so there's days that I won't read for people. I will literally call them, and sometimes to their upsetment, but they understand. I'll say, it's not even about me. I don't want to do a reading without me being pristine.
Yes, and also
I won't do it.
This is a weird question, but I would imagine channeling. I know tarot is exhausting because I do about 4 or 5 appointments a day, and I have to be on top of it, and I have to be in the moment. But channeling must be exhausting, is it?
No.
Oh, the opposite?
It's never been that way for me. Never. Oh. I'm very fast. I open very quickly. I get to it very quickly. Spirit's very quick with how they handle people. If I'm tired, I'm tired. That's just it. I just am tired. And maybe I'm just tired at the end of the day, or I just came in tired with it. But it's never been depleting that way for me. What I've turned into a habit many years ago to do, and right now I don't have a bathtub, and I'm getting a bathtub, so I'm moving to another place for a bathtub, is I would get into a bath at the end of the day and just soak.
Mm-hmm. That's my habit.
Because that's the best. Earth is very good for me, and I have found that because I have not been able to get out on the earth, it really does not help me not to be walking the earth. I get more information walking the earth than sitting in a brick and mortar. That's the way I work, and water is very cleansing for me. I need to sit in water. I need to be in water at least once a day.
Yeah,
it helps.
my nightly bath with my salts or whatever. You know what I mean? It's really a big deal to wash everybody else off of me.
Right.
Okay, so channeling. So now you. What type of information when you channel for people do you like? You were saying you were kind of saying
it just depends on them. Yeah, it really depends on them, and the information that's comes through in the groups really depends on what they want to talk about. You don't know. Several years ago, I was at Solutions in Newtown, and it was a small group for the channeling, and they spoke about this time. In fact, they've been speaking about this time since the 90s. Mm-hmm. They weren't specific, but they said clearly the light and the dark shall split. Didn't know it was going to be such a resounding split, but it shall split, and everything unknown, unhealed, unresolved, untended to would hit the surface for resolution and completion. And that's where we are now. They talked 2.5 years ago that many people would be passing. And one of my friends who's really into the whole idea that we create our own realities and we are God, which I don't see how that can be because I'm just not mature enough to be God. I just can't. I can't. But that's okay.
Yeah, we'll hit that in a second because I agree with you. Yes, but go ahead.
Yeah, it's okay. Everybody has a right to their beliefs. There are many ways home, many lanes on this highway. She said to the group, well, we can change this. We can mitigate this. And they said, no, you can't. Not this one. This is predestined.
Okay.
It must happen.
Yeah, I love that. Let's start with, they said split between the dark and light and the resolution or everything coming out. Do you believe, and I don't want to switch this in a political way, but I feel like we're being lied to everywhere, whether it's the financial system or the media or the news.
See, it's not. Yes, I'll let you finish.
I was just going to say, I think it's everything. And this is the point where, I guess probably they were saying, lies are going to come out. Your dark side, you better look at it. You better do the work now. That kind of thing, which is all about us evolving. I guess that isn't a question.
I believe it's all about us not just evolving, but really coming from almost like the reptilian small way. I don't want to criticize here because much of this is our own doing. Mm-hmm. Much of this is out of our hands at this time. What they were very clear about, it wasn't the darkness, it was the disease darkness that would split away. And I really believe this is happening because of all the years of prayers and asking for the light to come. There's no place more for all of this to go. It can't be hidden anymore. There's no place for it to sit. And it's our internal process, too. It's been extremely painful to watch Facebook. I have had to stay off of it for months at times because people, the internal rage and agony and fear of each other has, rebounded so drastically. Yet, in the same breath, I can tell you this time down has changed me profoundly in ways I've been praying for years.
Yeah, it's
for years.
Yeah, I agree. It's funny because I have to tell you, the last year of my life has been so transforming, and I went from, I'm a comedian, so we play on the dark side, to flipping that to being funny on the light side. Right now I'm writing about my shadow side. I'm writing about having to be right and that kind of stuff. And it's resonating because it's coming out of, and probably I'm sure my behavior on Facebook wasn't great, but now there's certain things. In fact, this is kind of new. I go on Twitter and I watch the attack of the person that's trending. And I think who are we to sit in that and go, and I will make jokes. So everybody that's saying she's a hypocrite because I'll make a joke if it's funny. But there's a way of attacking that isn't even trying to make light of the situation or something. And I feel like that's about to break open or change. There's something about that that has to. Yeah.
It has to. All of this has hit the surface because we were dying. And the earth was dying. And we were denying that. We cannot go back to the way it was. It's gone. It's way gone. and we should be grieving the losses.
Yeah.
Grief has been our biggest pebble in the shoe, not just anger. We, as a society, we have not honored the deep sorrow that so many have carried.
Mm-hmm.
If we talk, the political range of things, I don't like to get into that because it's like putting gasoline on a fire.
Yeah.
But at the same time, it's not the governments aren't working. They haven't worked for generations.
Mm-hmm.
Good intention in much of it, but we need councils. We need a different way of living.
Yeah.
Period. And a paragraph. And we have the templates for it. We just don't know how to put it in position because God forbid we would let go of control and let the earth lead us, or let the heavens lead us,
Mm-hmm.
or let the four-legged lead us.
And the prescription companies are leading us, and the banks are leading us.
Yes, right. But I have to say something about the medical, because I honor them. I got severely ill at 55 years old, deathly ill. And if it wasn't for the medical profession, I wouldn't be here. There's no way. They did make mistakes. They did harm me at times, but I learned from that to have my voice and to be my own advocate.
Mm-hmm.
And not be afraid to argue with a doctor. Not be
Yeah.
afraid to say, no, you're not doing your job. Or, no, I'm not taking that pill because it does this to me. But I also was in the hands. I was gifted a man. His name's Dr. Gold, of course, because I was looking for a primary doctor. And I wound up in the hospital with an NG tube down my throat, which is not a fun experience, thank you. And he walked in and looked at me with a twinkle in his eye and said, my friend, I have one question. I said, what's that? He said, what are you doing here? And I laughed and said, that's what I'm just thinking to myself. He said, this is not good. But he wound up being my primary for many, many years. And he is allopathic, but he's also homeopathic. He believes in the healing of the body. He would not throw medication at me.
Which is the way I think we should be going, or most of us, maybe some.
But I needed major surgery several times. And without those surgeries, no, I wouldn't sit here.
Yeah.
I wouldn't be here. So there has to be a balance with this. And some people do have to take medication that's allopathic.
Mm-hmm.
It saves their lives.
Yes, and I do think there is that balance. There is the intent of the person that's going in to heal, and then there is the intent of the person that prices a prescription pill at $10,000 each. There's that's
right, and we have the greed, and everything's happening here. And I said it years ago: the universe demands integrity. Do we think we're going to get away with being out of integrity and being greedy forever?
Yeah,
it couldn't happen. The universe is not accepting this. We're part of a whole big spiral. We cannot just think about ourselves. We are not the most important beings in this world. We really aren't. We have to value ourselves, and we have to be a collective and love and have value and self-worth, but also be connected. It sounds really old adage or new agey, but that connection of community is imperative now. Mm-hmm. We must begin to start to sit in a circle and be in community with each other, forgive the past, know that we will not agree on everything, but also have that common sense that the weakest link is how the strongest circle is. And
I was just saying,
the other thing.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm hearing something else, if you don't mind, that really, with the medical profession, that's why this whole thing with the big pharma companies, you have to watch. Many of them are in it for the money, but many scientists are not. Look, they chase down HIV, They ran that down. They still haven't gotten a vaccination, but they ran that down. Those men and women were working day and night with that,
Mm-hmm.
This whole thing with the pandemic, I'm not so sure. I don't know. I had COVID. I got very ill, but I take a lot of vitamin D for another metabolic condition. As a healer, I had to learn not to judge people who were ill. I was always going to go in, let's correct this, let's find out what's broken in you, that way you won't be sick. I got ill, and I didn't want anyone to do that for me. I just wanted them to comfort me while I worked it out.
Yeah, and I think
it was a very profound process.
That can be. I mean, I think that the reason why people get sick is a larger topic. But yeah, I think the intention there, and it's also funny because even, prescriptions they're made of stuff. They're not of the earth. They're just a different chemical. But I think I don't know. That's a whole, yes, it's very.
It's a whole other topic.
Mm-hmm.
And, I tend to lean towards herbs and supplements anyway.
Yeah.
And I encourage people diet, get enough sunlight. I mean, lifestyle changes. Lifestyle is a big deal of all this. In any given case, I think we got onto that just because of what's happening out there, with COVID and the fear, the tremendous fear that's going on, really.
That is, I think, I think if the vaccine works, it's going to be because it's taking away the vibration of fear that so many people have.
Mm-hmm.
I think that fear, I'm with you on that. That fear was making people sick in itself.
Right. So
as we sit here in 2021, in the beginning of 2021, because when you were talking about, I almost thought that the explosions of sort of anger and change in January, I almost thought they should have been bigger. And I don't mean wishing bad things to happen, but I think this sort of, I'm going to call it like a revolution. I think we sort of pulled it a little longer. What do you see coming as we sit sort of in the beginning of 2021?
I think it was sometime in 2020. I went to a sound bath, a sound healing, with this wonderful gentleman who actually out here was rebelling against the masks and whatnot. So I didn't know he was a sound healer, but I went and they actually held a space for me because I got lost and they waited for me. It was a very profound experience. And he was on the stage, and I went there for healing. And nothing else. I needed some sound healing. And he was playing the crystal bowls, and then this ancient shaman spirit began to sing through him. And he was playing the indigenous flute and something else, and all of a sudden I was having a vision. I didn't realize it was happening. And the first thing I saw, I was on the tailwind of this huge bird. It was all white with black tip feathers. And it was huge. And I was on the tailwind, and we were going over very lush trees. And I asked what the bird was, and I heard eagle. And I thought, this can't be an eagle, because it looked more like something from the Asian bent. Those pictures of these large birds with the black tips. And then it flipped somewhere in there where I to my left, I saw the head of an atomic bomb, and I heard the the combustion of it. And then the wave of energy that literally went through the room like 3 feet above me. And I started crying because I realized it was going around the world. Mm. And I think we mitigated actually some sort of bombing somewhere in the world, or at least for now, unless it was this thunderclap of change.
Wow. Yeah.
When I came back, and I came home, and I'm thinking, it could be an eagle. The eagles are not white. The next day I get up and I open my Facebook page, and there, the first picture is this huge bird, white with black tips. It's an albino eagle. So I believe that it's not the government. It's not COVID. There has been fractions of darkness that have been fighting against the light, and they're trying to fight us down. Robbie Robertson has a song, and in the song, it's Ghost Dance, the song Ghost Dance. He says, you are nothing against my prayers. You are nothing against my love. And I believe that we are at a tipping point, that really we need to get through the eye of this needle, put our egos down, and start holding on to the light, holding on with all our prayers and our strength so that humanity may continue.
Wow.
May continue. The earth will. We saw that the first 3 months. She was like, yeah, everybody inside, I need time to breathe. And we all went inside and sat down. We have peacocks in L.A., downtown L.A. We have buffaloes laying on Catalina Island. Come on now. Mm-hmm. Really.
Yeah, kangaroos through Australian cities. Yeah, it was beautiful.
Yeah, right. It's like the earth is saying, my beloveds, I want you here. I don't need you here.
Yeah.
I want you here. And one of my friends said something so great about COVID. She said it could have been worse, but Mother Nature, the Great Mother, went, no. I'll mitigate it. So it's going to be difficult, but it's going to teach lessons without such tremendous trauma.
Wow. That is the perfect segue as we go into, as I come back for part 3. I think you and I are in agreement. Well, 2 things, about us being gods. So everybody hang on 1 second. We will be right back.
Psychic teas, spelled with a Z, are scrumptious herbal combinations with antiviral and anti-inflammatory properties. Without sugar or caffeine, psychic teas won't mess with any medications and are designed by a naturopathic doctor. Many testify to positive results. Detox chakras and psychic tea blends enable bodily functions with superior efficacy, while more love and champagne blends support awareness of subtle joy and bliss. The CBD's teas are magical with myriad healing effects. There are 20 servings per package. A little dab'll do ya, and you can drink it hot or cold. Psychic teas taste so good. Replace coffee, use as a bedtime ritual, or even flavor a meal or dessert. The people behind the product are righteous and kind. Psychic teas will blow your mind. Totally worth the investment. PsychicTeas.com.
So there's a couple of things, which first of all, I have to say, I think that I have gotten more enlightenment and more, I'm going to call it sparring with the dark in the last year than ever, to the point where like now I'm hearing my guides, like I'm hearing like I never did before, like clear and do this and do that. There is also, it's very interesting because my studies, I have paranormal, sort of what I consider the darker side, and I've made an enormous switch over to archangels all of a sudden. And I'm finding all this information that I really appreciate that is not just like, oh, they're these beautiful beings and they're here to help you all. And there's sort of been this differentiating of especially archangels, and reading what, just reading what the Archangel Gabriel looked like. He only showed himself to 2 people and they were terrified. One was Muhammad and one was Daniel. So this sort of, I feel like it's not only enhancing my respect for everything, but this we are gods, or, I want to call it an angel help me with my boyfriend kind of thing, is like really not what the whole thing is about. So when you hear that, like I do know people that say we're gods and we can create, and I believe we can create, but I'm very hesitant to step into that place to say we are gods. And you sort of reflected the same thing. Can you expand on that?
Yes. I have a lot of mixed feelings about that we create our realities. I put something on Facebook one time about that, and Spirit spoke to me afterwards. They said, you do create your realities as long as you're lined up with the highest purpose. Then it happens. See, creating our reality is really decision-making. And we're not punished if we zig instead of when we could have zagged. Because as Ram Dass used to say, besides to be here now, which is a really important statement for right now, actually, but in our world, but the most profound thing that keeps coming back to me that was stated about a couple years ago, particularly after he had the stroke, God bless him, he just recently passed, is we're really just walking each other home.
That's beautiful.
And I really even try to figure out why we're going through all this. When I talk to Spirit about it, they say, fear not. They said to me the other day, what the part of the issue is, you all think you have to correct this on your own. You're forgetting about us. Again, that we can help you mitigate this. But that's the whole point, is to grow back to the communication with Spirit without losing, not making that like the adoration, like altering all that, like putting that up on a pedestal with them, because that's been the problem. We've all wanted to be in heaven and not on earth, most of us. But to honor that they are part of this too. We're not doing this alone or just with each other. We don't have to be that stressed and tense. which would happen anyway, because, look, this has been life-threatening for so many people. But to really, lean now to a place of being an offering and service with spirit, not just of spirit.
Yeah.
And so in that place, then we can be godly or goddessly. That's not a word, sorry, now it is. Whatever however you lean into this place. I use the word God because it's just fast, and everybody knows it whether they like it or not. It is a place of harmony, and it is a place of eternity. In this world that we have come from, Spirit used to say for many years, at the end of the channeling, we'd get asked why we smile so much. And they would look at the people and say, if you would remember where you really come from, you would smile a great deal too.
Two things. I think I feel like death is a prefix anyways. Like if I'm supposed to die next week and I beat COVID, I'll get hit by a car. I just feel like it's not I don't know how negotiable it is. I feel like we have a few exit points that we can choose throughout our life. But also, I think that I feel like we're the lucky ones that get to come here. I know a lot of people this is so hard and this is, but I feel like, no, we're the lucky ones. We get to have this adventure before we go back home.
And also we were made for this time. We were made, these ships are well built, they're well tended to, they've left the docks, they're heading towards the deep part of the ocean. When this all started for me, I went through 3 weeks of such anxiety, and then it broke. It stopped. And I actually enjoyed the first 6 months of having to be inside, because it shifted how I did my work. It shifted my attachment to money. It just took everything off the plate. Now I'm getting way tired of it. I mean, I'm a natural extrovert. I should be out there running around, singing hallelujah to everybody or saying hello. So it's just tiring for me at this point in many ways. And I haven't gotten out enough to get to sunlight. And I know that's part of it. So I just think that I know now that we are in times of great thought. We need to really be in those contemplative places, and yet at the same time be of the joy too.
Yeah, I think gratitude, people ended up with a lot more gratitude than they thought. And I always say to people before COVID hit, remember when you said you didn't have time for things? Now you have time. I almost think
now you have time.
That was the collective thought, was everyone was going, I don't have time for anything. And then the universe was like, oh, now you do. Now you do.
I'm getting tapped by Spirit about recognizing that we're not alone in this. Not only do we have each other, and there is a great value. I was taught by one of my teachers about the no enemy way. There's no enemies, really. Not really.
I love that you say that, because I interviewed another shaman just a few weeks ago, and she was saying how her realization was that there was no enemy. And I thought, that is, we are, as myself too, I seem to be fighting something that's not there. And one of the greatest compassions I learned in this space of COVID was just be nice to yourself. How hard is that? Which actually turns out to be very hard, but it really is this, give yourself a break. You're not fighting anything. There is no enemy.
No, and you're not an enemy to yourself. When I was in pain management, the one doctor had above his door, be kind. Always be kind to everyone, because you don't know what they're going through. So be kind.
Yeah.
And that's a stretch when we take everything so personal, and we believe, because of our histories and how life has rolled for many of us, about attack. Course in Miracles says there is no real attack except that perceived. Now, I don't know if I agree with that. Someone's going to drop a bomb on my house. That's an attack. Yeah. Or is it just a big fat setup? Who knows at this point, right? But, in the Course in Miracles also says, and I paraphrase, there are no large or small miracles. In fact, if a miracle is not occurring, there is something askew. All miracles are equal.
Wow. Yeah.
And so this is a miraculous time, and I'm getting tapped by Spirit to allow them to speak as we're sitting here.
I'm have at it. Hello, Spirit.
Unless you have something else you would like to ask.
No. You're
Very
doing
good.
great. I'll let you run with this. This is great.
Okay, all right. So what I do is I take a breath very quickly and bless myself. I'm Jewish by birth. My friends laughed. They said, I never saw a Jew who knew how to bless themselves like a Roman Catholic. I said, well, I had a lifetime as Queen Mary of Scots, so go ahead, figure that out. So it's the doubt. It's the doubt, and doubt is not incorrect. It causes questioning, but when the doubt gets filled with fear, which is not incorrect, because it must leave the cells of all beings, including the children that have been abused or have been neglected or have lived in drug-addled families or malfunction. And we speak about this because of the service that you do, Blessed One. The quiet service around the children. And so it's the doubt, and the doubt has come to a head. It is not to get to a place to be like Peter Pan where you never question again, nor ask. It's the fear that you may look foolish, you may be called stupid, you find yourself silent at moments because of the silencing from childhood. You don't want to break out of the box. You want to be loved. All of those things are correct and necessary. Yet, can they be balanced now with the frenzy, or the ferocity? The fervor, is that the word fervor? Of intent, of the value of truth, and inspired messages that go beyond those things still being taught about opening to Spirit, to the place of the grid work, to the place of the councils of heaven, of the place of information and teaching that go beyond what the earth knows now. The children shall lead all home. And yet our eyes go to, which has not been recognized because of all that is covering, that is all the distraction. And be careful of distraction, blessed ones. Your minds have loved distraction. It is an addiction because it causes the rush of adrenaline, which makes you think that's passionate living. So be careful of distraction. And if it occurs, then learn and live through it. Do not be distracted by smoke screens. Lean through, rise up above. It's not just the children that you know of that are coming in thousands now. Those children need to be protected and also instilled. Imbalance is great on your planet at this moment in every way possible. And yet there are light beings and lights all over the planet holding through sound and prayer and blessings as the imbalance spins out to reset, or let's change that word to turn on its axis, belief and reality. For surely, if you want to know spiritual reality, turn all of humans' laws inside out, and you have spiritual law. We speak of the children that have always been on your planet. There will always be those that live at times begotten lifetimes or suffering or die young. It will slow down and come to a mitigated place, but there will always be life lessons. Yet there needs to be a focus now, not by the government, by the beings who will shoo away the fog of fear and about the government being your savior, and look towards the ghettos of life where children are still suffering. This is part of the next heartfelt encouragement of not saving, but loving. Behold the transition of human nature, and behold the healing of the human condition. The opening of the cellular gridding of one's being so that spiritual upsweep, soul voice will be shining. The time of discussion must turn to the time of ritual and movement, of sounding, of prayer, and of communion between souls in human form, as well as souls in non-human existence. It is time to begin to find sanctuaries and place of gathering to sit quietly together in prayer, in counsel, for those of the light-skinned, of the dark-skinned, of the yellow-skinned, of the pink-skinned, of the red-skinned. It doesn't matter. Skin is just the nature of how the sun has changed the coloring. Now, this has been done for generations, really, these sitting in circles, but now in a way of non-spoken, silent gathering where telepathy can be developed, particularly with the earth and those that swim, walk, fly, and grow of it. The gathering of nurturing in nature, the coming with technology, but also the honoring of the natural world. The upsweep of human physical body, so it vibrates the frequency of a gold light. That disease may exist because of the frailty of human chromosomes, but suffering and many of the diseases will transmutate for the coming of the great self of light. Dear one, we will be honored to answer 1-2 questions of yours, perhaps one for those that will listen, and perhaps one for yourself.
Wow. For everyone, are there better ways that we can listen to the earth?
The first thing is to stop thinking. Now, we're not talking about logical thought or high thought. We're talking about the running of the mind. It is hard to listen when the mind is running amok. The second thing is to be retaught by those that are healthy of the One Nation people and pray for those still caught in the addictions of the One Nation people, of all people, really. The third thing is to walk the earth and to stand on it every day, get your feet on the Great Mother and say thank you and ask to be taught. To come together in circles around the fires, to do the ceremonies with water, and mostly to sit in a prayerful state and see what happens. To learn to till the fields again, to feed each other. For the analogy of the great Yehuda ben David, or Jesus the Christ, that parable, the bread and the fish, is for this time. To feed each other, to make sure each other are safe, to know without judgment that those that pass away for whatever reasoning are going because they're going, to celebrate birth, and then in the middle of it, to ask those who are here to change their ways completely. Now, that bodes another question: how do you change your ways completely? But that's for at least an hour session, isn't it?
It is. All right. One question for me, which, by the way, I am in great gratitude that you're speaking to me. How can I serve people better through this podcast or through what I do?
Oh, dear one. Great one. You make us weep that you have such gratitude, because that is the first stone we take from your shoe, the first pebble that hidden, and forgive us, we won't go into all details, that is too personal. But that hidden place of not believing of deservability, of honor, there's nothing ego to be of joy of who you are, not just in your service to the world, but your living of your life. The second place is to clean up the diet and live a good, healthy life. Hard, but it is the task on your plate right now. Because you've let go of so many addictions, now it's time to finish it up and not be perfect. You don't have to be, stressed over it, but to live a life that is clear of thoughts of doubt as to much of your ability. And also, with the podcast, let go of the fear of being large.
Mm.
Many call it the fear of success, but for you, it's about the value of people hearing this. Start networking. Just put it out there that you want recognition, and not recognition for your ego, and why not for the healthy ego to some degree, but recognition for the light that you are.
Wow.
And recognition, so we recognize it for you, of the value. No, let's change that, because that's doubt again. That this goes far and wide as people reopen the doors, which were opening before, for it's happening for the young ones, as the crystals reawaken and drive them through the TikTok perception to buy them. That the awakening of the children, the awakening of the adults and elders, now not in despairing questioning, which is maybe how they come, but more so in the realization that they can't do it alone, and that there's much more unknown and unseen that would bring salvation or a salve to their heart, to a comfort, and open the doors, and the fear of not being taken care of or being abandoned or not being safe will be finally healed, so that they can not just listen, they can hear. And out of that will come the opening of the heart meridian in all beings that will survive all this, and the light of a star, of the sun behind the sun, the central sun, reactivated. So the mitigation or the opening of the human chromosome and genome structure, along with that of the hierarchy, along with that of the galactic being, shall awaken and hark and hear the angels sing.
Wow. I'm blown away.
If we had further time, we would certainly add to that, but we know time runs short.
Well, I will definitely be contacting you about a session myself. That was amazing. I think I'm going to have to go listen to it 10 times.
Yes, and it is really for all of this, us, whoever, whatever you call us, whatever us means to all of you, whatever that means, we, I am, all is. These sessions, quote unquote, are really to awaken, to place without a doubt and without shame, without embarrassment, the lighting, what word can we use for this? Activation doesn't cut it. The acceptance of the brilliance of the beings who walk upon the earth to sing hallelujah to the coming of the great times. For certainly you stand in the great crucifixion right now, all of you, the grand conclusion to do the resurrection and the ascension of heaven to earth to heaven, and a new world born here, and a new earth already created to take its position, so when incarnation starts again, it will be surely in the place of paradise.
Wow.
And beyond that, we have so much to talk to all of you about. It goes way beyond that. Words within words, and then no words, and then no sound, and then a place of such humming, unspoken harmony. Come with us for a moment to that place, and may that place settle in your beings so that you weep deeply for all the transgressions. Learn well and be willing to make it better.
That was amazing. Thank you for that, Amaya.
You're quite welcome.
I'm almost speechless because there was so much. I'm just going to have to go listen to that over and over because
It's not just the words; it's their energy that does this. I think to people.
And there were so many synchronicities in what you said as for today and now, and just I don't know. It was just beautiful. It was just fantastic. I see why your podcast is called Wise Woman. Oh, my God. Well, before I blather on, I want to say, first of all, thank you so much for coming on the podcast. People can find you at the Amaya Center.
Yes, AmayaCenter.com or Amaya at AmayaCenter.com. You can email me. There is a calendar. Will be going up if you want to make an appointment. My website's getting ready to be revamped. You can touchstone with me on Twitter, which is Amaya Victoria. Instagram is Amaya Center. And Facebook is Amaya Victoria or Amaya Center.
And I'm
right now my pricing is half off because of what has happened in the world out there. I've been told by Spirit the prices will come back up around May. I guess things will be shifting. But that's not in stone. I have to wait to see. When they give the thumb up, then I'll move. And if it doesn't happen then that's fine, because it's not about the money. It's not even about the service. It's about you all. Each and every one.
That's fantastic. That's wonderful. All right, everybody. I think I'm going to go meditate because that meant so much to me. I'm not kidding. You have no idea the trigger words in there where I was like, okay, I'm in this. Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
I can't wait to listen to your podcast. And everyone, I certainly hope you enjoyed this as much as I did. Thanks to Mike at Uno Rising Media and everyone. I will see you next week. Thank you, Amaya.
Thank you. God bless. Godspeed. And may we all know that we're in this together.